out of pocket, what I need to pay is the electrical, the plumbing, the front step, the back step, getting the skirting under the mobile home. All in, that cost me about $6,000. I had 4 to start with. I only spent 2 out of my pocket. Merry Christmas, daughter. Got the mobile home sold for her for $23,000 cash.
What's up, Forte community? This your girl, G. Coleman, CEO and founder of Brown Skin Girl, located in Waldorf, Maryland, and Dallas, Texas.
How do you like your grits?
Sugar. You put sugar in your grits.
You put sugar. We starting off the podcast line. That's what.
So my plaque, I got a Beyonce plaque. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we had two number ones, right? But then the other plaque I got is for Lil Nas X. So Lil Nas X. I'll show you. I'll show it to you.
What's up, world? This is your favorite chef. Chef X is in the building. I've worked with some of the most amazing talents in the world, from Cardi B, Offset, Negative Style, Your Money Bag, Eddie Murphy, you name it, I've done it. And I just want to say shout out to the Forte podcast.
The types of assets that I purchase are multifamily apartment buildings, right? So I'm typically looking at buildings, complexes that are 100 units or more. The largest that I've ever been a part of is right at 300 units.
Come on. Anything you do that's worth succeeding, you always got to take a step down to go up. Mm-hmm. Even if you're going to go win the lottery, you got to take a deficit of $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, however much you spend it on a lottery. So your bank account takes a deduction before you shoot up. So before you shoot up to $20, $30 million, your bank account needs to take a deficit, whether it's gas to go to these meetup.com locations, whether it's to go put on a suit or buy a suit if you don't have a suit, to be able to be presentable in circles, right? Or to get a laptop or to get a printer. Like, it's always going to be deduction before you see a production.
I want you to know that if you have a desire to be great, yes, the greatest among you is a servant.
I'm Bo Wheeler, owner of Arthur Wheeler Experience Company, and y'all are tuned in to the Forte Podcast.
Welcome to the Forte Podcast. I am your co-host, Dominic Epps.
And I'm your co-host, Randall Monfiston.
And we are here to dive into your lane of greatness to discover what comes easy for you that may not be easy for all others.
Everyone's a genius, from the 9-to-5 employee to the Fortune 500 billionaire. We're here to highlight those attributes through dialogues and interviews with what?
Amazing guests. Yeah. But I got one question for you.
What's that, bro?
What's your forte?
Let's
go. Yeah, we are here today for another amazing episode, man. Bro, here we go, man. We here. We good?
Yeah.
What you got going on, man?
I was trying to adjust my laptop so it could be eye level with the camera.
Oh, okay. How was your week?
See, I was looking down. It was good. It was a good weekend. It got a little busy. Added intermodals to my list of freight that I move in conjunction with dry vans. So trying to get my current team plus new drivers coming in, caught up in training. So a little crazy trying to do that whole shuffleboard piece to get everybody in the same setting. But it was good. It was good stuff.
Yeah.
Turned out well.
That's good, man. Question for you, man. Okay, so I'm sure you've been watching all of these boots on the ground video. 2 questions, man. Have you learned the line dance? That's the first question. You haven't learned?
I haven't.
All right.
I haven't.
Me either. Don't feel bad.
Okay.
But what's your thoughts, man? What's your thoughts on fellas, guys hitting the fans, bro?
Truthfully, I don't even know what you're talking about, bro. Like my
oh my God! I'm trying to find the right effect here. Hold on, which one?
Is this some type of Vine video? Somewhere? I feel so old. Is this some type of Vine? Is this some type of viral video?
Bro, how do you not know what the boots on the ground? You know what? Because you got so much going on. That's why I'm gonna give you that. You got so much going on with gift transport that you ain't got time to, do boots on the ground. But I'm sure today's guest, because She's from the big state of Texas. I'm sure she knows exactly what I'm talking about. Because, bro, you don't even have a clue. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to bring up today's amazing guest show. We have another amazing guest for another funny episode. And I'm going to have our sister, the one and only, Kimberly Davis, to come on and introduce herself. Come on, sis. Welcome to the Forte Podcast.
Thank you. What's up, guys? It's me. I'm Kimberly Davis, LMFT associate. I'm glad to be here.
Period. All right, before we even get started, sis, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I absolutely know what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh. Let me go Google. What do you say it was? What is it?
It's so
what
funny
is it?
because I have an instructional up on my computer right now. I was looking to see how to learn.
Let's go. That's it. That's it. And this guy don't even have a clue what's going on in the world right now. I mean,
I thought I was behind. You got to catch up, Randall.
Yeah. You got to catch up. So now he's looking on his phone, y'all. Y'all see this?
I am.
He's looking.
I am. I don't care. Okay. That's fine.
Okay. Let us know when you found it.
I did find something. I guess the guy's trying to give a tutorial of how to do it.
Show the camera. Let's show the Fortes out there. There you go. That's it. So you got it.
What's the fan thing you talking about?
So, like, if you watch the video, you'll see that, there's a fan, they use the fans, you know what I'm saying? There's a couple of times in the song where they pop the fans, right? And so my question was just like, man, should guys be using the fan, or should it just be the females using the fans, hitting the fans? That's all, man.
Oh, the fan. Well, he's doing a hip movement. That's the fan you talking about?
Nah.
Oh, it's something else that you talking about.
All right.
Hey, we're not gonna spend a part. People didn't come to view or listen to the podcast about me being old and irrelevant to what's going on. I can't wait to hear my son say, "Dad, how you on your podcast looking old?" Because I looked at myself in a glimpse in the camera, and I'm looking like this. I'm yeah, we're not doing this. Moving on. All right.
All right. So
came on here to hear about. Nah, we're done. We're done, Don.
We're done with that. I got you. We done with that. So today's episode, y'all, we had the opportunity to interview Kimberly Davis. And sis, please tell the Fortes out there in the world, what is your forte?
So my forte is coaching and counseling. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist associate, so I specialize in couples and families, trying to get you healed, trying to get you whole, trying to bridge the gap between generations. That's my forte.
Oh,
bridge the gap, right? Bridge the gap. So relationships, building relationships. Got it. So what we like to do is that's where you at now. Kind of paint the picture to us, so the viewers, the listeners. How did you get here? So let's talk about your childhood, your upbringing. Like, was that something that you learned from your mom, your dad, family, and then it just was embedded in you? I see you already shaking your head, so it sounds like you already got a story. So go ahead, let you go.
Absolutely not. So I grew up in a small town in Texas, as Dom alluded to, LaPorte, Texas, right outside of Houston. Born and raised, lived in the same house all 18 years before I graduated high school. My mom and my dad, and I have a sister that's 2 years older. My parents just celebrated 50 years of marriage a couple weekends ago.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah,
that is.
Yeah, but I will absolutely say, watching their marriage completely transformed my view of the world, relationships, what I wanted, what I did not want. It was just me, my sister, and my mom. So my dad was completely surrounded by women, and he had no idea what to do with any of that. My dad always wanted sons, and so I always kind of felt like I had to try to be the son that he never had. So all that stuff about feelings and emotions and all that kind of stuff was frowned upon. It was looked at as weakness. It was like you were soft. So all that I'm a person who has a lot of big emotions. I'm a Cancer. Dom, you're a Cancer. So we have big feelings, big emotions, and a lot of that I had to push down as a kid. Also coming from a Christian background, African American background, therapy is not something that is very included in our community, is frowned upon. It's like that's something outside. And especially in the Christian community, it's like, well, don't you believe in Jesus? And is your faith not strong enough? So I didn't know what to do with all of the feelings that I was having that I did not know how to regulate. So childhood was hard because we
Wow.
weren't given tools on how to navigate that. And so part of the reason why I do what I do is to equip families with those tools so that we can stop those generational patterns.
Woo!
Interesting.
Woo!
Interesting. So you said, so I can imagine like 50 years, unless it was learned later on in the marriage, 50 years, there's a lot of give and take with that, right? And you said that you had to suppress a lot of your feelings. Was it that you had to suppress a lot of feelings because you were solely trying to show up as the son that you felt your father wanted? Or was that you didn't see that interpersonal relationship between your mom and your dad, which further added to you having to like push down your feelings? Because I'm
I
wondering, how did
think
the 50 years last? Like, how did you last for 50 years without that type of give and take and sharing of thoughts and feelings?
I have my own theory on that, and I will be careful about how I say this just in case my mom and dad catch this podcast on
Keep
Facebook.
it. No. Keep it hot, honest, open, and transparent. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Let's give it. Come on, let's do it. This is the right place to make it happen.
What I will say is that people grow, people change. As a therapist, I'm a high believer in the fact that people can learn and grow and change over time. So I will say that who my parents were when they first got together, when they first got married, versus who they were when they were raising me and my sister, versus who they are now as grandparents, are totally different. How I
Got it.
saw my dad and how my dad showed up in my childhood is different than how I see him now be with my kids. So it's both of what you just mentioned. My dad's view of how you should be is tough, it's hard, ain't no room for no crying. You know, go deal with your emotions over there. If something's wrong with you, you did it to yourself and you need to fix it. That was his motto. Um, with my mom and dad, there was no I grew up in a house where my mom would always say, love you, and my dad would always say, yeah, same here. And if we went to go hug or kiss my dad for any reason, he would frown up like he was being hurt. Affection and emotion was not something that was prevalent. And so I had to overcompensate in the opposite direction, because the way that I saw him was very cold and very hardened. Of course, as you get older, and if you have children, there's a lot that you learn about the way your parents show up, and you start asking questions about why they show up that way. And so, me going through my own healing journey taught me a lot about my father. It taught me a lot about my relationship with him, and the fact that the reason why he showed up the way he did came from a place. His upbringing, his relationship with his mom, his lack of relationship with his dad, etc., which impacted the way he related to my mom. God bless my mom. My mom is the most loving person that I know. And a lot of her traits passed on to me, which is why I do the work that I do. But my mom had to sacrifice a lot of her feeling to be able to maintain the marriage. I think a lot of the reason why they made 50 years is because she said, okay, I'm going to deprioritize what I need in this moment for the bigger picture. And, I have to give her kudos for that, because that's hard for a lot of people to do, to say, I'm not going to argue about what I feel in this moment. I'm going to deprioritize that for the bigger picture.
Yeah, and let me add this too, right? Because when we hear, for some, we normally we celebrate quantity over quality, and we shouldn't, right? 50 years doesn't mean it was 50 good years.
Amen.
You get what I'm saying?
Amen.
Like, out of that 50, I'm not saying this is for your parents, but out of
Sure.
50, let me just say ours. Me and Queen, this is, 16 years, right? Going on 17 years. I can be honest to say, out of 16, 3 is like quality.
Yeah, that's real.
3 is quality.
That's
The
real.
other 16, she just putting up with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, she just going through the motions. And that's what happened in relationships. And I'm sure, Kim, you saw that not just from your parents, but from couples that you were with, that a lot of old school parents, they just push stuff under the rug. They don't know how to have conflict resolved, right? Especially
Absolutely.
the wives. A lot of the wives just hush up. You know what I'm saying? So the husband is dominant. He gonna put his foot down. He's probably the breadwinner. In those days, the wives probably didn't work at all, right? So they took care of the household. And so whatever dad said, that's pretty much how it went, right? In our family, it was the opposite. My mom was the breadwinner, but she used to come home. My dad that wasn't working, he couldn't keep a steady job, and she used to give him her checks. Like, and he goes spend it up and drink it up, and you see what I'm saying? And so I know what you're talking about, Kim. I know. I just want to say, listen, just because somebody's saying they've been married for all these years, right? One of the best questions to ask them is, okay, how many quality years have you all been married?
Yeah, that's a real place. And I mean, I'll be honest about it. When people have asked me about my parents' marriage, I've always said to them, I salute them for being able to withstand for 50 years, but I've always known I didn't want the marriage that they had. Watching their marriage completely shaped the way I saw the world. When I was born, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My mom went to work when I was 8 years old. So my dad was the breadwinner. And very much like you described, what he said did go. And even to the point where he was saying, what are you asking her questions for? She didn't have a say in any of this. If you want something, you have to come through me. It taught me, before I even knew exactly what college was, I knew I was going. I knew I was going to have a career. I knew I was in a place. I don't have a voice.
Yeah.
Like, it completely shaped my life. Now, on the other side of things, you know, it affected who I chose to marry, my kid's dad. It impacted our marriage, the way we interface with each other, the fact that we got divorced. Yes, I'm a marriage counselor, and yes, I'm divorced. And I feel like that is a place that I can get judged sometimes by people when they hear, okay, you're a marriage counselor, but you're divorced. And I say, yes, my job as a marriage counselor is not to tell people to stay married. It's not, because every marriage is not healthy. If you're toxic, then is it the best thing for you guys to stay together? And what is the impact of that on your children?
Hold on. Pause for a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
So,
because I think that goes into what you were saying, Dom, right? Like most marriage counselors, right? They're getting paid, fix us to this way. So I could foresee that you're giving them the tools, but in the process of getting the tools is not necessarily like to fix y'all to stay, fix you to identify if this is going to work or not, right? Is this the person that I'm meant to stay on this journey with? Because I think once you open up your mind and you see that there's a better way, there's other options out there as far as what your mate should be doing, right? Because it's supposed to be give and take, right? Sometimes they'll give 70 and sometimes you'll give 30 and vice versa. You'll give 70 and they'll give 30, right? And I think you're giving them the tools to them being able to make a informed decision. Because I've never been married, but the little bit of tidbit in the rooms I've been in, a lot of it is just being aware of how you set proper boundaries and then identify those who are not respecting your healthy boundaries. So kudos to you for not pushing it down and throat like, yo, y'all got to work it out. Because a lot of times that's what I hear is that you got to make it work. You got to make it work. You got to make it work. And you're the first person I've heard say that I'm not trying to get y'all to stay together. I'm just trying to be the best version of yourself is what I took away from that statement.
So,
absolutely.
So, and let's get, and get into your story, right? So you grew up in this household where, your parents were together, right? So you are in a 2-parent household, which is very rare in the African American community, right? And so talk to us about how was school, right? So were you, because you were trying to be that boy for your dad, were you tomboyish, right? Did you hang around boys? Did you play like sandlot football with the guys in the neighborhood? Like talk to us about that.
When I was younger, yeah. But at that point, at that stage, it wasn't really about trying to be the boy. I think at that stage, I I aligned more with the guys because I just wanted to show up and play. I wasn't that catty. I'm gonna talk about you behind your back. I'm gonna do all these girlish things. Like I was like, I want to go fun. I want to go have fun. I want to go play. I like sports naturally. I mean, I was raised on football. I was raised on basketball. I played basketball all the way up through my senior year in high school. So a lot of it was just, I never had to worry when I was a young kid with the boys. If they said that we were cool and you wanted to go play, then that's what it was. I didn't have to worry about the double meaning behind what was said. So I naturally was drawn to boys at a younger age. I growing up in school, I was a straight A student almost always did honors classes, always tried to be the best. One thing that I will say that I got from my dad was work ethic. The one thing I can never, ever, ever say about my dad is that he did not work hard. My dad worked harder than anybody that I've ever seen. He sacrificed a lot to make sure that we didn't have to have the experiences that he had. He grew up in a family of 11 children. My grandma had 11 kids and my 11. And my dad was the oldest boy.
The only boy.
No, there were 3 boys, but he was the oldest.
Oh, the oldest. Okay, gotcha. The oldest. Okay, gotcha.
And my grandfather was only around long enough to produce another child with my grandmother, and then he was gone again. So my dad had to essentially be the man of the house. And so a lot of his characteristics, I don't have time for feelings and emotions and all those things came from his upbringing. And they were very, very poor. He was the one who was sent to other family members to go beg and borrow when they didn't have enough. And so his mindset was that I will never put my family in a situation where we don't have. And even though we didn't live rich by any means, we were middle class, there was never a time where I ever had to wonder if we were going to have enough food, if the lights were going to get cut off. We took family vacations and things of that nature. So to everybody else on the outside, we were the Huxtables of the family. They looked at us like we were the perfect family. I think the downside of that for me was, as me and my dad began to clash in my teenagehood, and when I say clash, it wasn't because I was out there being rebellious and sneaking out the house and drinking and all those kind of things. It was because those feelings that I had suppressed for so long were coming to the surface. So when I was 16, I was diagnosed with depression for the first time. And the way that we found this out was I got insomnia. I just stopped being able to sleep. And my dad was convinced it was because I wasn't working hard enough. Although I was in 2 basketball leagues and I had a summer job, I still wasn't sleeping. And so I remember we went out one day about 1 o'clock in the summer. And you guys, if you know Texas heat, it's hot.
Yeah.
You're talking about 100, in the summertime. So we're out and we're running, no water, no breaks and all that stuff till I almost pass out. And he says, well, I bet you get some sleep tonight. No sleep. So I happened to be working in a clinic because at that point in my life, I thought I was going to go on to become a doctor, go to medical school. And so I said, let me go volunteer in a doctor's office so I can get some experience. The doctor that I worked for was on vacation, and the lady who was in his place was an African-American doctor who went to the institution that I ended up going to college. She went to Xavier University in Louisiana. And so I created a chart for myself and I said, I'm going to come see you today because I don't know why I can't sleep. So at the end of the day, she brings me in. She starts asking me questions. How is school? School was good, straight A's, no problem. You have a lot of friends. Are you involved? Yep, got lots of friends, involved in many activities, president of this, vice president of that, whatever. She asked me, how's home life? And without even thinking, I broke down crying. I just broke. And she said, okay, I can see what's going on. And she said, do you think that this has to do with your relationship with your dad? And I said, yes. She said, do you think your dad will come and talk to me? I said, no. She said, do you think your mom will talk to me? I said, yeah, my mom will talk to you. And she said, do you think your mom can convince your dad to come talk to me? And I said, no. She said, okay, give me your mom's number. I'll call her. So she calls my mom and she explains. And she asked my mom, do you think your dad, that your husband will come and talk to me? And she said, no, he won't. So she gave me a bottle of antidepressants and some Ambien to help me sleep. And so for a few months, I was taking this medication, and I don't know what the conversation was between my mom and my dad, because during this period of time, I can't remember specifically what happened, but me and my dad were not speaking at all. We lived in the same house, but I wouldn't come out of my room unless he was in his room. Like, I literally wouldn't eat. I'd rather just stay in my room. So I remember at one point, I left the bottle of medicine on the counter, and he found it, and he was like, "What is this?" And I said, "It's my medication." He said, "Medication for what?" And I said, "For my depression." And that's when he basically said, if you have depression, that's your problem. You need to figure out how to fix it. Counseling wasn't.
Wow.
And there was no further discussion about it. And so at that point, I was 16, and I was just like, how do I survive until I graduate high school? And that's what I was saying. The hard part about the way we grew up is that on the outside, it looked like everything was great. We were the Huxtables. We were going on vacations. Everything is wonderful. But inside, nobody knew what was happening. So I couldn't go and talk to anybody else within the family, because all they would do is say, "Well, what are you complaining for? You have everything. We don't have all the stuff that you have." And that's why I always implore people, don't believe the lies that you see on Facebook, because nobody's life looks as grand as it looks on Facebook.
Say that again. Say it again for the people in the back, because that's a good one.
Do not believe the lies of social media, because nobody's life looks as fantastic as it looks on social media. People can post whatever picture they want to post, but it has no bearing on what happens inside the walls of that house.
Ooh, you preach it, girl. You preach it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was hard. So my goal became, how can I get as much scholarship money as I possibly can, so that the day that I graduate, I'm out. And I did. I got a scholarship to Xavier University, and in June 1998, I was out. I was in New Orleans.
So here's my question. Right? Because I know what I did. I went searching for love because I didn't feel like I found it or had it at home. Right?
Yeah.
Now, I will say this about my dad. My dad was he said, "I love you" all the time. Right? But he was teaching me that you can say it and your actions don't line up.
Yeah.
I mean, me and my brothers used to be embarrassed, man. We'd be 15 years old. My dad still be like, "Give me some sugar," in front of our homeboys. Like, dude, I'm a teenager now, man. I'm not kissing you on your lips, dude. Like, we're not doing it. But that's how he was, right?
Yeah.
But what it took me down this road was, and this is my question for you. It took me down the road of trying to find what love really was, right?
Yeah.
Or to be embraced by someone, to, like for me, and I had this conversation with my mom probably just a few years ago. The conversation of why I go so hard to make sure I'm at my kids' games. I played sports all my life. I can count on one hand how many games my parents came to.
Yeah.
My coach, my senior night football, I had nobody present to walk me across the field.
Wow.
My heavy set white football coach, Coach Woods, I love him to life. As I'm looking like, is anybody going to show up? He grabbed me by the hand and he said, "Come on, son," and walked me across that field. Right? So my question to you is this. Did you experience a season in your life where you were searching for someone to love you the way your father didn't love you or didn't demonstrate? Talk to us about that.
Yeah. I would say that is the bulk of my adult journey, if I'm being 100% honest, in various ways. I think that in my young college years, I think part of it was just me coming into my own of who am I as an adult, not under the shadow of what my dad expects. How can I stand on my own and show that even though he never told me he was proud of me, I'm worth being proud of? How can I prove my worth to my parents? And in relationships with men, once I got to college, for whatever reason, I became a cute girl. Like I'm the same girl I was in high school, but nobody was checking for me. Everybody just looked like, oh, that's a nerd because she's getting straight A's and she got AP classes and all this other kind of stuff. But when I got to college, guys were looking at me like, oh, okay. So I said, okay, I'm gonna enjoy a little bit of this. And not in a wild way, but just I like the attention. They make me feel worthy of people's time and attention in a way that I didn't get it from my dad. So I did experience that. The problem with that was this was my freshman year of college. And at the end of my freshman year, I was sexually assaulted by a guy who was a part of a fraternity. And it was a part of a fraternity that all of my male friends were a part of, and all of my female friends were part of the sister sorority. So, as you could probably imagine, just the violation itself is devastating.
Right.
And then as I went to share with the people who I thought were my friends what happened, the guy on the other side was saying that I was lying about what happened. And they all chose his side. So immediately I went from a group of people who I thought were my friends to nobody. Like I literally didn't have a friend left to talk to. At the same time, I was getting pressured to go to the police. Well, if this really happened, you need to go to the police. Now, at the time that this happened, I was 1 week away from final exams. And I'm on scholarship. So I'm terrified that not only am I going through this event, but now I'm going to flunk out of college. And now I'm really going to be the failure that I've always felt like I was because my father was never proud of me. So I'm just going to prove him right now. So I said, I don't want to go to the police because that means I have to call my parents and tell them what happened. And they said, well, I'm taking you to the police station, so you better call them. So I get on the phone and I call. And long story short, my dad says, what did you call here for? What are we supposed to do? It's like, we can't help you, so you need to go somewhere where you can get some help. So I hung up the phone and I went to the counseling center. And that was the one and only person that ever asked me what I wanted from the situation. What do you want to do next? And I said, I just want to get through finals and put this behind me and forget any of this ever happened. I said, I've already lost all my friends behind this. I don't want to be demolished in the eyes of the law. And let me just say this really quick. Being a person who's a victim of a sexual assault, it's a hard place to be for anybody. But women, people who are victims usually get attacked the most. It's like you try to make the person who was victimized responsible for their own victimization. And it makes people shy away from standing up. I have 3 daughters, and it would break my heart to know that something happened to them and they didn't speak up because I would be by their side.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I had that support. So even now when I talk about it, and it grieves my heart to say this, but the one thing that I regret about the whole situation was that I said anything, because me saying anything cost me everything at the time. I had that.
Man.
So I didn't go to the police. My parents drove up and basically said, I can't believe that you were stupid enough to get yourself in a situation where this happened to you. And so I didn't have what felt like family support at that time. And so I literally was navigating solo. And that was when I found dependence on the Lord, because that's all I had left at that moment.
Man.
So I have such a passion for women. I have a passion for college age girls and young teenage girls because I want them to feel informed and empowered about who they are and their worth, regardless of what people around them are saying, and to know that they're worthy. And if something bad happens to you, it has nothing to do with what you said, if you flirted, what you have on. Nobody has the right to take advantage of you, to harm you or hurt you, no matter what. And no means no. Period.
Man,
Let's go. Let's go. Let's
just
go.
you listen, listen. Man, you done got me emotional with that one. That boy, I almost dropped while listening to you talk about that because I never heard that before. This was the first time I heard this from you. So this is yeah. And it's one thing to go through, you know, that situation, but then when you call on the people that you expect to help you, that you expect to be there for you, you start with your circle of friends,
Yeah.
and then they turn on you, and then it's like, all right, I know my parents are going to be 100, have my back, right? Then you call, and then they turn the tables and say, hey, what did you do to put yourself in that position? Um, Man, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you started writing your book yet, but you need to write it. You need to write it. I got a friend of
It's,
mine
yeah.
that you know, he's written a book and he's having his book release coming up soon. But I never forget. I've said this several times. I never forget when he told me why he had his first child, 16 years old, while he was in high school. He was a
You said
junior.
why? Like intentionally why? Like he
Intention,
intentionally had, oh,
intentionally wanted, and him and his girlfriend that was in high school, they're still together. They're married today. Amazing family. But he said this while we were kids, man. Because I'm like, bro, what you doing with it? He said, I want to show my dad how to be a father.
Mm.
oh,
So
his
he
dad
was
was about 16.
intentional. That was his thing. He didn't have a relationship with his dad. His dad wasn't in his life, and he wanted to show him how to be what he wasn't to him. Now, fast forward, they have a good relationship now. He's grown. He's, you know, before he's 40 years old, right? But when he said that to me, man, it was like, man. So to hear this from you, kudos to you, first of all. Now I see that the lack thereof, it built callous,
Yeah.
right? And so when I talk to you and you share some of the challenges that you've been going through, right? I can now see the callous now. I can see how some of the things that you encounter that would have broken somebody else, to you is like, I done been through worse. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
That's
I done been through worse.
Yeah.
So,
all.
what you,
Yo,
man, bro, what you got for him, man? Because,
yeah.
yeah.
Because I want to further prove these naysayers wrong. Just that story alone. For those, you started off saying I have a marriage counselor, but I'm divorced, right? So people immediately
Yeah.
is put off. Right? How can you teach me on how to successfully navigate? You're teaching them how to handle the different feelings, the trials and tribulations that you have the receipts for. Like you've experienced a lot of heartache, a lot of letdown, right? And that's what a lot of marriages go through, right? There's ups and downs. Dom just shine light. It's 3 quality years of the 16. So there was some downs. And it's just about how well you're able to navigate and to get back up. And you've shared just enough. Just on that's I'm assuming that's like 22. So we're at 22 years old and you experienced all of that. So I'm curious to see what's the rest of this journey,
Yeah.
right? So you talked
That
about
was at
getting married.
18.
Say
That
again?
was 18.
That was what? Because it was it was your
It
freshman
was, I
year.
was a
It was your
freshman.
freshman year. Yeah,
Yeah.
your freshman year.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So you're still a teenager. You can't
Yeah.
even be at the bar yet. Okay. So let's
Right.
prove these naysayers wrong or why you are the person that people should come through to help get their feelings managed, to be able to show up the best that they can for whoever they chose to be with. And then from there, know if that's even the person they're supposed to be with, because now they've matured, they've opened their mindset to another level that the other person that they're with may not be ready to receive. So after
Yeah.
that unfortunate incident occurred,
I'm assuming college went fairly well, and then you met your significant other or to be significant other during college, after college. Kind of talk us into that relationship, and then transitioning out of that relationship.
Yeah, college was tough, which has always grieved me because people say that college are the best years of your life, but for me, it was just marred by the trauma of what happened. So I immediately started to hate who I was, where I was, what I was doing. I was still doing well enough in school. I mean, I was on mission to get scholarships, and I repeatedly got scholarships and was able to keep myself in school. My grades were fairly good. But I started to lose confidence. Like I dropped pre-med. I was like, I'm not going to go be a doctor. Um, I'll do biology. But that's what was expected of me. And then I got to my junior year. Now, keep in mind, by the end of my junior year, I had done all of my coursework to get my degree minus 3 classes. So I was taking 18 and 19 hours a semester, every semester, before and after. And then I decided, what do I really want to do? Like, what am I really passionate about? And I've always been very passionate about helping people and healing people, which is why I wanted to go be a doctor in the first place. But I thought the people who really heal are nurses. So I applied and got into nursing school. I applied to Georgia State University, and got accepted into the program. I didn't even really recognize how prestigious and how competitive a program that was. But I got in. The problem was that the summer before I was getting ready to start my rotation, there was one class I needed to take and it filled up. I couldn't get into the class. It was an anatomy and physiology class. I tried to take it in New Orleans. I tried to take it here in Houston. I tried everywhere. I couldn't get it. So I called the school and I said, is there a way that I can just take this one class with all my other classes? And they said, no, if you can't take this class before you show up in August, you're going to have to reapply to the nursing program next year. So I couldn't start the nursing program. I did go ahead and go to Georgia and went to Georgia State University for a year. I took that one class. I was taking my other classes, the last 3 classes that I needed to finish my degree at Xavier while I prepped to reapply. It was during that time that I met my ex-husband, and we basically met, got pregnant, got married, and then life was about, we're a married couple with a child. I got to go to work. So nursing never happened.
Hold on. So, did you say that you had to go to work, or was it we, meaning he go to work and you go to work, or was it he go finish his school and you go to work?
Let me just say this, and I am the poster for why you take your time in relationships before you get married, because we got married 9 months to the day of our first date, and even at that point, I was 6 months pregnant with our oldest daughter. So when I first met him, the story that I was told about who he was well, first let me tell you how we met. I got a job unloading trucks at UPS. That's how I met my ex-husband, because he also worked for UPS. It was a way that I could make money while I was going to school, because we worked at night. So the story that I was told was that he was getting his associate's degree and that he was working 2 jobs. I later found out that he'd already stopped going to school and that he was just working the same part-time job that I was working. When I found out that I was pregnant, I was already working a different job. He'd already quit the job that we met at, and so he started working the same job that I was working. At that point, we decided to move to Texas because that's where I'm from. That's where we had that's where I had family, and that's where we had support. We didn't have any support from his side of the family, and that's a whole other story for another time. I never had a good relationship with his family at all. Still don't to this day. but we moved back to Texas. And when I moved back to Texas, by this point, I'm about 7, 8 months pregnant. So I can't work. He gets a job, but he's not stable. He was one of those people in his youth that don't like the way the boss talked to me, so I quit. So when I make the statement, I got to go to work. Within the first year of marriage, it was clear to me that the direction that this family was going to be on me. My dreams, my work, my organization, my logic. It was all going to be on me. So even though I was finishing up my degree, I was still working sometimes 2, 3 jobs to make sure that we were all staying afloat and to make sure that I finished school and that we weren't going to be a statistic of a young African American family.
How was your parents in their approval of your marriage?
There was no real approval. By this time, my dad and I weren't talking at all. When I talked to my mom would fuss at me for not talking to my dad. So we were limited in the way that we spoke. It was almost like I was informing them, this is where I'm at in my life. You could choose to be a part or not be a part. So they came, they were at the wedding. And then that's when my mom started the campaign of, why don't you move back to Texas? Because you'll have us around and we'll help. Now, they've always loved the babies. They weren't happy about it, but they always showed love to the babies. But they always had a lot to say about their expectation of where I should be, where I am right now. I very much felt like I failed. I very much felt like I disappointed everybody. I very much felt like whatever potential I had was lost. And so here I am now working as assistant manager at Domino's Pizza when I graduated in the top 1% of my class.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But you graduated. Well, hold on. I don't want to fly past that, because with a child, you graduated.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I know that you were trying to kind of, look at it from the perspective of, hey, I got a degree. Why am I working at Domino's? But you completed something that most people in that same situation would have just dropped out. Right? They would not have finished. And so I don't want you to look at that as, a downgrade. You was able to do something that a lot of people couldn't, didn't do. Right? So that's actually a good thing.
That's correct. I don't look at it like that now. Back then, it felt like failure.
Gotcha.
And the way that it was received was like failure, because when I did finish my degree, like I'll never forget, they announced it at my church. And when they announced it, it was like, yeah, we like to announce the graduation of Kimberly. Well, my last name was Williamson when I was married. Kimberly Williamson. Yeah, we know that it wasn't exactly the way we thought it was going to be, but it's here now. So everybody give her a hand. It was like, what?
Hold on. You just getting slapped in the face everywhere, huh? My gosh.
Yeah.
Listen, thank God there was no social media back then, though. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. I know.
That would have went viral.
Graduation, I go to the graduation in New Orleans, which happened 3 months before Katrina.
Okay.
So I go to graduation, and my parents and my sister did come up. And the whole time I'm thinking, I keep asking them, okay, well, how long are y'all going to stay in town for? Are we going to go out to eat afterwards? Are we going to celebrate in any way? And my dad just kept saying, I don't know, we'll see. I got to see how it feels. Got to see what's going to happen. So we go to the graduation. Graduation ends somewhere around noon. Everybody goes outside to the second line. I meet my parents in the parking lot, and I say, okay, what are we going to do? And my dad says, I don't know what you're going to do, but we going home. And I'm like, you're not going to stay in town. We're not going to celebrate. We're not going to go eat or anything. And him and my sister are both like, nope, ready to go back home, ready to get out of here. So there was no real, well, not by my family. I did have some friends in New Orleans, a family that basically adopted me.
Yeah.
Like right after I had the assault,
Yeah.
I met a guy who I dated for about 4 months, and then we became best friends. And his whole family adopted me. To this day, we're still in contact. This is like
That's
my
good.
surrogate mom, aunts, cousins. They threw me a graduation party. They gave
That's
me
what I'm
cake,
talking
they
about.
cooked food, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Kudos to them.
They were
Kudos to
the
them.
family that celebrated me.
Yeah.
And so I love them and I always appreciate them, but it always started this hole in me. Like, why am I not enough? Why is it that every time I do something I feel like is noteworthy, the people who I am looking at that I expect to be there for me are not there? And so I think for the entirety of, at least for the entirety of my marriage, I felt like who I was a person who was always trying to earn people's attention to demonstrate my worthiness. Like, if I do more for you, then you'll see me as valuable and you'll want to spend time with me and you'll want to keep me in your life. And then I would feel used, and then I would get angry, and then I would be hurt, and then I would withdraw. And then I would feel bad, and then I would go back. And so it was repetitive. It was a cycle that I did not get myself out of until I got divorced, if I'm being honest.
Wow.
And
How long were you all married?
12 years. 12 years. So
So
by the
during those
time
12, no, I'm
Mhm.
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, by the time we got divorced, the other two daughters had come along. So when I got divorced, my oldest was 12, my middle had just turned 4, and my baby girl was 1, and I was a single mom.
Wow.
What I was about to ask at the beginning of the marriage, or I believe the beginning, when you shared during the marriage, you identified that he was a person that would quit a job just off of the fact that he disagreed with the manager. And you've already identified that you have to put the hat on to be the logic, the breadwinner, the like the emotional support and all those things. I'm
Yeah.
curious at what point during those 12 years you pivoted from like, I gotta endure, and I'm assuming that's coming from childhood, seeing what your mother did, suppress her emotions and her logic and her emotional intelligence for the sake of just having those years instead of it being quality years. At what point
Yeah.
did you pivot, and what happened for you to pivot? Right, because it went from I'm gonna endure to now I'm out of here. So what occurred, and how did you go through that process to become comfortable enough to say, yeah, we gotta go our separate ways?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I want to add to that
Okay.
because how was you able to do what your mom couldn't do?
Yeah. So what I'll say is this: I knew the first year of marriage that I was in trouble.
Oh.
Um, and not just because of the
Year
fact that
one?
year one, I knew that I'd made a grave mistake.
Now hold on now, hold on. Was this um post traumatic, well, what you call it?
Post
Syndrome?
traumatic stress
PTSD.
syndrome.
Yeah.
No, no.
You
So let
this
me tell you a quick
okay.
story about how this happened. My ex-husband was one of those who really loved vehicles and really loved sound systems in vehicles. So he was all about amplifiers and speakers and bass and all that other kind of stuff. And so he would spend inordinate amounts of time outside with the car. Um, and then he would make friends with, like, I remember we were living in this very cheap apartment, and there was this kid who basically had been expelled from school. He was probably about 15. And him and my ex-husband would hang out all day long looking at speakers and whatnot. And I remember we used to drive, when we used to come from church, there was an auto shop on the corner. And there was this car that was sitting outside. And he always was like, I wonder what it looked like underneath the hood of that car. And I said, why are you worried about that? We can't afford that car. Anyway, I was sitting in the apartment one time with our oldest daughter, who at this time was about 5 months old. And he came inside the apartment and he said, Kim, I want to tell you something, and I don't want you to get mad. So already I'm like, what did you do? What happened? What did you do? And he says, I don't want you to think I'm keeping secrets from you. So I just want to let you know, you remember that car that you were telling me about? I mean, that we were talking about that's on the corner. And I said, yes. He said, well, it's outside. And I said, what do you mean it's outside? It's outside where? He's like, it's outside our apartment. I said, what is it doing outside our apartment? How did it get here? He was like, oh, well, me and the neighbor, we pushed it from the shop 2-3 miles down the road to our apartment. And I said, you stole that car? And he said, no, I didn't steal it. I just wanted to look at it. And I said, you have no right to it. You stole it.
Wait a minute. Wait. Hold on. Real quick.
Woo,
let's unpack that, because this man said he looked you in your eye and said to you, I did not steal it. I just wanted to look at it 3 blocks away from where it was originally at. Okay, go ahead. All right, play. I want to hear what you have to say.
I immediately broke into tears and I said, how could you do this to me? How could you do this to me? And he kept saying, what did I do to you? What did I do to you? And I immediately just started grabbing things. I grabbed the baby and bottles and a bag and all this stuff. And I picked it up and I went and I got in the car and I just took off. Couldn't even talk to him anymore. And so I went to my parents' house. They probably lived about 10
now,
minutes away.
What year of marriage is this?
This is year one. Year one. This is year one.
Yeah, I could see why you said that. You
Yeah.
Oh man.
And so I get to my parents' house. Now keep in mind, my dad and I do not speak at this time. And so I know I'm taking a risk by going there, but I'm like, the only person I can talk to is my mom, because I adore my mom. So I show up at the door, me and the baby, and I'm crying. And she goes, Kim, what's wrong? And I try to duck off into the very first room right by the door so I can start talking to her about what just happened. Well, about 2 minutes after I get here, the doorbell rings again, and it's him chasing me to my parents' house. So by this time, my dad's like, who is at the door? And so he gets up and he comes and he sees me and I'm crying with the baby and he sees him and he's like, what's going on? So now I have to lay out to my parents, who I'm like, you already think that I don't have good judgment. Now I have to sit here and tell you about how my new husband and father of your grandchild has stolen a car and is parked outside of our apartment. And so we get through the whole story and my dad says, well, where is the car right now? And my ex said, it's still parked outside the apartment. And he said, maybe you should go get that food that helped you push it down to the apartment and y'all push it back and be sure you put it in the same spot that you got it from. And maybe the good Lord will have mercy on you and nobody will know that it was ever gone. So he left and they pushed it back and we never heard another thing about it. But at that point, I went, who did I marry?
Wow.
What did I do? And I immediately thought, I need to get out of this. I need to get out of this. But I had some other people, and I'm going to take a pause and go on a little tangent. I believe in marriage wholeheartedly. I hope that one day I get to do it again. But one of the issues that I have with the Christian community is that they espouse this thing that the best thing that you can give your children are married parents. And that's not necessarily the case. Not if it's toxic, not if it doesn't honor you, not if it doesn't honor family. Sometimes the relationships are unhealthy. And when you keep children in an unhealthy environment, they pick up, they normalize unhealthy behavior and unhealthy patterns. And so at this moment in time, I had a few Christian people who knew about what happened, who told me that I just need to stay and fight for my marriage. And I looked at my parents and I looked at my mom, just like Randall said, and what she's endured. And I said, we're not raised to be a quitter. I'm not going to give up just because it got hard. He's young, he's immature. I'm going to fight for my marriage and I'm going to give all that I have. And so I will say this, for 12 years, I gave all that I had. I gave morsel of what I had to give.
Besides not pushing a car, going to steal a car.
Absolutely.
Wow.
But
Okay.
to answer your question about when the breaking point came,
Yep.
so for 10 years of the 12, my ex-husband was pursuing an associate's degree. And yes, you did hear me say associates, and yes, you did hear me say 10 years for a degree that typically takes 2. Okay. During this time, he would work at Papa John's or Starbucks or whatever, and he would work probably about 10 hours, no more than 15 hours a week. At one point, as I got into my career, my initial career after I finished my degree was I work in clinical research. In fact, I still work in clinical research during the day. And so as my career was starting to build and take off, I started to make more money. We became more stable. That fear of, oh, we don't have enough money for food or lights or water was going away. And so I told him, just stop working and go to school full time. Get your bachelor's degree. You have enough classes where if you went to school full time in a year and a half, you'd be done with a bachelor's degree. And then you would be able to help me with these bills. He told me that it didn't make him feel like a man to not bring home a check. And he also said that he didn't want to take more than one class at a time because that would be too hard. So for 10 years, he took one class. Sometimes he passed, sometimes he didn't. And he worked 10 hours while I worked 1 or 2 jobs, would come home, would do homework, would cook food, would wash clothes, would do dishes. And then at year 10 was when he graduated. Okay, when he graduated and he got his first professional degree, and he got a computer science degree, so he works in IT. At that point, his priority became making friends at his job, hanging out with the people at work. So a typical day for me would be I go to work, I pick up all 3 kids from school and daycare, I do homework, I cook dinner. He would roll into the house probably about 8 o'clock because he would be hanging out with his buddies or going over to their houses to help them with their personal computers. He would come home, eat something, say, I'm tired, and go to bed. And there I sat with 2 small ones on my lap to do bottles, to do diapers, to do whatever. And in that moment, I thought about my mom. And I said, I won't be that. I won't live this way. I won't teach my 3 daughters that this is what marriage is supposed to look like. This is not a relationship that honors me or respects me or even cares anything about what I want to need. And of course, this is after, I'd cried, I begged, I pleaded, I said, let's go to therapy. He went for a few times and then he stopped going. I kept going. And there were several times where I would say, I feel like a fool. I feel like I should not be here, and yet I can't leave. And part of it was I felt responsible, not just for the kids, but for him. I felt like if I leave, he'll flounder, he'll struggle. How will he make it? And how will I be able to live with myself knowing that he's suffering? And so I stayed for a long time because I felt obligated.
Listen. First of all, let me say this. This is how we know this is good, right? Because we not even into your forte yet. Right? And we did a whole episode. So you go through life, right? You finally have the enough strength to focus on what's best for you and your daughters, right? And I'm assuming you asked for the divorce. Okay.
Actually, that's not exactly what happened. Let me tell you. Oh, there's so much more. And you're right. I do have to write this book because there's so many other big juicy parts that are being left out of the entire story. But one of the pivotal moments in my decision was, and this is going to sound really crazy, probably my favorite part of the whole marriage was when I had my hysterectomy. I know that sounds weird, but I had to have surgery, and my mom had to fly in, and I had to be taken care of by her. And it was my favorite part in the whole marriage because it was the one and only time that anybody cared about what I needed, took care of me. And it wasn't my ex-husband that was doing it. It was my mom that was doing it. And it made me realize that for the entirety of this relationship, I've poured so much into caring for everybody else. I had nothing. My cup was completely empty. So I remember there was one time we got into a huge argument because we had put my oldest daughter in a school that was near his job so that he could pick her up from school. And on 2 occasions, he didn't show up to pick her up. And I didn't get a phone call that said, "Hey, I got something going on. Can you pick her up?" or anything. I got a call from the school that says, "Hey, school has been out for an hour. You going to pick up your child?" And so I called him and I said, "Well, where are you?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm with one of my friends from work." And I said, "Well, is there a problem? Are you having to work late or something?" He was like, "Well, I'm helping them out with something. It's not my project, it's theirs." And I said, "Did you not know that you had to pick up our daughter?" And he was like, "Yeah, I knew." And I'm like, I'm not dumb, deaf, or blind. This one I don't need in red flash and not in lights to see where your priority is. It was not us. It was not the family. And so we got into this huge argument, and he actually said the words, "Well, maybe we ought not be together." Now, keep in mind, along the 12 years, there were at least 6 times where he said, "Well, maybe we ought not be together anymore." And every single time I went, "But what about the kids? Or what about our family? But what about what God will think? I think we need to fight. We need to try. We need to do all this other kind of stuff." And this particular time, I went, "You know what? You're probably right. We probably shouldn't be together." And so I said, "Well, what do we do about our oldest daughter?" Because she was the only one who's old enough to really understand what it would mean to get divorced. And he was like, "Well, we got to tell her." So I call her into the room and I watch her heart break as I tell her that we're going to get divorced. And then she goes off into her room because she wants to be by herself. And at this time, I was on the worship team at my church. And so we had rehearsal that night. And so I said, "I'm going to go to church." Um, and while I'm there, I was parlaying to one of the other worshipers my story. And again, these well-meaning Christian people, this lady says, "Well, you got to fight. You got to go back home and you got to try and you got to do it for the family and you got to do it for all these different reasons." And so I go home and I said to him, "Well, maybe we can give it one more try." And for the next 3 days, he was the meanest and ugliest that he's ever been to me and the kids. And I said, for somebody who's on the brink of losing their family, you sure don't seem appreciative that I'm trying to work this out with you. And he basically said, I hope my kids never watch this podcast, but he basically said that the kids were getting on his nerves, that he feels like he's sacrificing everything for the family, and that he wants some me time. And I was furious. Furious does not even encapsulate how I felt, because I thought about the number of times, bros, when at the very beginning of our marriage, when we were still in that period of we don't know if we're going to have enough food or money for lights or water, I would go to work and I wouldn't even take a lunch with me because I wanted to make sure there was enough food at home for him and our child. When he would argue about the fact that he's a man and he should have money in his pocket, I made sure that there was always enough money for him to keep in his wallet, even though I never got any. In that moment, I thought about all the times that I put myself last and I put him first. And I said, "This is over." I said, "You can stay in this room I can stay in this room, and we don't have to be in a rush to get a divorce because we have a lot of debt together. And I think that the best situation possible is for us to be available to co-parent our children together. But this is not happening anymore. We are moving ahead with divorce. And he tried to pull it back. A couple of days later, he tried to say, "Well, I thought about it and I changed my mind." And I said, "No, there's no changing your mind on this one. This is moving forward because I can't live with myself like this anymore." When I had my hysterectomy, they give you pain medication. And I had a bottle of pain medication that would sit on my desk, and I would sit and look at it and wanted to take it. And I didn't want to die, but I just wanted to numb the pain, the hurt, the abandonment feelings, the feeling that nobody cared about what I wanted and what I needed. And when I got to that place where all I want to do is numb it, I said I have to get out because I won't let my daughters think that this is the way that it's supposed to be. And I won't let them think that if they make a decision, good or bad, that is inescapable, that they're powerless and that they have no choices. They always have a choice. And even if they fall, that as long as you have breath in your body, you have the ability to get up and move on and try again. And that's why I got divorced.
Yeah.
Man,
This was
Woo,
so
go ahead, bro.
we're
Go ahead.
we're at so 10 years in, he finally got his associates. He started hanging with his friends. I guess he started feeling himself a little bit. That's where the pressure or so-called pressure of feeling like he was giving up everything for the family. It was at year 11 or 12. Like, how long from the time that you had this epiphany that, hey, like, he's all about him. Everything I've sacrificed, not feeding myself to provide for him, not
Yeah.
having money in my pocket just so he could feel like a man and have money in his pocket. How long was that until y'all were like divorced?
So, like I said, like I knew I was in trouble year one, and there were
Mm-hmm.
epiphanies all along the way that
Mm-hmm.
showed that he was selfish, that he wasn't really concerned with me or the kids. And I'm not going to say in general because I don't want to paint him as a person that does not love his kids. But I will say it wasn't priority for him. There were other things in his life that took precedence over his responsibility to a wife and his kids. And I saw it along the way, but like most relationships, when you bring issues to a table and you talk about it, it is easy for a person to shift or change for a temporary amount of time. It's the reason why when I talk about relationships with people, there's a stage where there's a mask that's put on. Okay, your best representative shows up in the beginning of a relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
After about 6 months or so, you start to see changes in that person. Well, what you perceive as changes, but there aren't really changes. They're just showing you more of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times what we do is that we push down or push aside the flags that we're seeing, the light bulbs that are coming on about who that person is. And instead of reevaluating whether or not this person fits in our life, what we do is we go, well, I've invested so much time already. I put in so much effort already. I don't want to start all the way over. And what about what they promised me? Aren't they still this person? And so you stay in and you hang in there hoping that along the way you can have enough influence on them that they'll show up in the way that you want them to. But the reality is that we only have influence. We don't have control. The only thing you have control over is yourself.
Hold on, Kim. Hold on, Kim. That was, we only have influence. We don't have control. Let that one sink in, right? For those of you watching, let that sink in. We only have influence. We don't have control. So what you're saying, Kim, if I'm understanding you correctly, we cannot dictate their actions, right?
Absolutely.
As Coach Glenn would say, you can take a horse to the water and we can't make him drink, but we can at least put enough salt on his tongue to make him become thirsty. That hopefully he would desire to want to drink, right? Man. So here's my question for you. Here's my question, sis.
Mm-hmm.
So you wanted to be a nurse, right? Doctor, you wanted to be able to heal people. You went to school. Man, you get the degree. You got a family. You're working. You go from dominoes to now you're a clinical researcher. You're doing, you're raising a family. You're raising a man, a grown man, right? And I know you can write a book alone about, strong females who are raising boys who are actually, husbands and boyfriends, and they're raising them, right? Instead of, co-hibernating in a way that's conducive to the relationship. So when does the switch happens for you to decide to want to heal people from a holistic standpoint of mentally, emotionally, relationally? When did it go from, hey, I want to heal you physically in whatever physical ailment you may have, to let's switch this thing over and let's from a therapeutic standpoint?
Yeah. So I will say first that one of the reasons why I knew that I needed to make this break from my ex-husband was because the original agreement that we had made was that I was going to support him. I was all in on supporting him to getting to what his destination was career-wise, with the idea that he was going to then take the reins and I was going to get to go to nursing school. But as time passed, at year 10, for the next couple of years, it was clear to see that that point was never coming for me, that it didn't matter what I gave or what we agreed on, that this dream that I had of being a nurse was not going to come to pass in our current state. So when I got divorced, I spent years keep in mind my baby girl was 1, so I spent a couple of years just trying to get recalibrated to single motherhood, which is a whole other session on that just alone. But I then spent time trying to find a nursing program that would allow me to work as well as do clinical rotations, because me not working was not an option with 3 kids at home. I couldn't find one. I was basically told there's not one that exists. And so my dream of becoming a nurse died. And I went into deep prayer for years. And I was like, God, I know I'm thankful for the career that you've given me. It's allowed me to create a stable environment for me and my girls. And I'm appreciative of it, but I know that you have more for me. I just don't know what it is. And then I don't know what to tell you. I'm a huge fan of Iyanla Van Zant. And I was watching Iyanla Fix My Life. I was a regular watcher of that show. And one day it dawned on me. Well, let me back up a little bit. A few years after, I'll say probably about 2018, I went back to therapy. I'd done therapy a few times in life. And I addressed the feelings about my marriage, but I never really addressed my feelings from the rape and all that cost me. While my therapists all knew that I had been raped, I did not explore all of what that meant, all of what it cost me, all of what I sacrificed, carrying that burden with me. And so one day, even though I had a decent job, and on the outside it probably looked like I was somewhat successful, I wasn't happy. And I couldn't figure out how to shake it. And I just finally said, there is one part of my life that I've not explored. And I think I need to explore it in order to get to the other side of this. And so I went to my therapist and I said, we need to start talking about the rape. And I immediately had an emotional breakdown after we start talking about it. But on the other side of that breakdown was when I started to heal. And I started to recognize that what happened to me was not my fault, that it wasn't because I was dumb, and it wasn't because I put myself in a position that made it happen to me. It was because I was violated, and that he stole something from me that wasn't his, and that I wasn't damaged. And I can't say this enough, because the view that I had of myself from that point was, I'm damaged goods now. So now I don't deserve top tier because I'm damaged. I'm tarnished. So I got to settle for whatever will accept me because I'm tarnished. As I went through therapy and I started to heal and I started to get my happiness back, and it was transformational. And I said, everybody should experience this. Everybody should feel the transformation that therapy can provide. And so as I'm watching that show one day, I went, why can't I do that? Why can't I do that? For so many years, I said, I'd love to help people change in that way, but who would listen to me? I'm so damaged. I'm so broken. I'm so tarnished. Who would hear my voice? And finally, in that moment, God said, why not you? Why not you?
Hmm.
So in 2019, I enrolled in my master's degree to get my therapy degree.
Let's go.
Wow.
Come on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah. So now let's get into this. Let's get into.
Okay.
So you enrolled to get your therapy degree, right?
Yeah.
And then so what's next? What happens?
So I enrolled in Abilene Christian University in their master's degree program, their licensed marriage and family therapy program. And I specifically chose marriage and family therapy for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to be able to give couples the support that I felt like I didn't have. I want them to be able to have tools that I didn't have when I went through my marriage. And I wanted to be able to work with families because, let's be real, y'all, Satan attacks families. Okay, we grow up in the environment of a family.
Yeah.
The family setting is pivotal to who we become. The lens through which we see the world, the lens through which we see ourselves, is all created in a family dynamic. So if you can get to couples before they start having kids, or even get to them early in their marriage, in their relationships, then imagine all the heartache that it saves the children, because anything that you don't heal gets passed down to your kids. And then people call them generational curses, but they're not curses, they're patterns. They're generational patterns that get repeated because bad behavior gets normalized. You think that this is how it's supposed to go. You don't know that it's supposed to go any different.
Hold on, doctor. Hold on, doctor. Bad behavior gets normalized.
Mm-hmm.
Can we pivot real quick?
Sure.
Pivot real quick, because that is so true of a statement, right? Which is probably why we as a community have, and I know people want to say, no, we don't accept it, but yes, we do. We accept black on black crime because it's been normal,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so what we don't accept is when, like, law enforcement, right? Because that's not normal. So when it happens, it's a big uproar, right? Like,
Yeah.
well, they supposed to serve and protect. Why are they doing this? But what's normal? So we won't march and protest and do any of this when one of our own, what we would do, like on social media, I start unfollowing people. If I'm friends with them and I see that they sharing these videos of people getting shot and stabbed, and I'm like, yeah, nah, right? So we now become entertained by the same thing that we will march down the streets for when someone else does it, right?
Yeah.
But we share it and, make a video go viral, and it's like, yo, we really share it? Like, really? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You really want, and this is another thing to get me, and we're gonna come back, but you really want to free the person that you know is charged with murder? Like, free so and so, regardless of if they're a celebrity or like, is that what we have reduced ourselves to? Right. So you're right.
Yeah.
We have normalized bad behavior.
Yeah. Or think about this, because this is the one that gets me. Even I'm gonna bring it down from murder charges. But I know I've seen people who will post or send videos. You'll have a video of a 2-year-old baby cussing their behinds off, just cuffing and this and this and this and doing all this and snatching their hand, grabbing the air and all that kind of stuff. And people are laughing. They're laughing and they're passing it on.
Yep.
I keep saying we got to do better.
Yep.
We got to do better. There's only, I don't want to go deep off into systematic oppression and all that kind of stuff, but there's only so much that we can point the finger at other people and say,
come on. That's truth. That's truth. There's only so much. There's only so much.
I tell every one of my clients, the 2 words that you will hear me use most often in therapy are intentional and accountable. Because you have to be intentional about the life that you want for yourself, and you got to hold yourself accountable to a standard. And that's one thing that I think that as a community, we suffer in. We won't hold ourselves to a standard. We'll say we got a standard and then we'll bend it to suit our need. Or somebody will come in. People always tell me, well, you need to lighten up some. It's all jokes. It's all fun. You need to lighten up. No.
How long are we going to blame the Willie Lynch letter? Right? How long are we going to blame, slavery? How long are we going to blame? Now, I understand that there are some, there's some long-lasting pain and a whole lot that comes from what we have been through and what we'll continue to go through. But at some point, we have to be able to say, okay, well, what do I do about it? Right? Yeah. Because I cannot continue to point the blame. Case in point, I know that my parents got a divorce. I know that my grandparents got a divorce. You see what I'm saying? At some point, do I say, hey, well, you know what? We're going to go down this road of divorce because I ain't had nobody to show me the right way. At some point, when do I become accountable and say, hey, bro, you got to look at yourself. Yeah. This ain't got nothing to do with your parents, your grandparents, or anybody else that you know that went. At some point, you have to look at your decisions and hold yourself accountable for your actions and say, all right, yeah, I messed that up. Right? Now, it's up to me to fix that. Right? So now you go to school, get your degree, right? When did you start your own therapy practice, and how did you get your very first client?
Okay, so around the second 1.5 years, second year, you do an internship because as a part of your degree and as a part of to get your license. So being a therapist comes in 2 parts. You have to have a master's degree, but you also have to earn a license, which means you have to go take a standardized test in which a licensing board grants you a license to practice. So as a part of that, you have to go get hours. You have to actually see clients and get experience in the field before you graduate and before you're granted a license. So
your experience, your life experience don't count. So everything you went through, that doesn't count towards your
not toward my degree. But I will say this. One of the things that I tell all of my clients that I feel like gives me an advantage, it makes me feel confident in what I'm doing. Of course, my confidence comes from the Lord because I know He called me to do this work, but also because I have a lot of life experience in this. I'm not just a 25-year-old, just graduated from college type of chick. I have experience. I've been married. I've been divorced. I've been a single mom. I know what it is to work 2-3 jobs. I know what it is to balance a lot of things. And I feel like because I open myself up with my clients about who I am, it makes me relatable. I think one of the most important things to finding a therapist is connection. And because I tell them, this is my story, this is who I am, I want you to know that just because I sit in this chair doesn't mean that life don't be life for me too. I face the same struggles that you face. It's just, how do you manage it?
That's good.
It's not about if you're going to have troubles. Everybody's going to have problems. Everybody's going to have issues. But what do you do with it? And do you let it overcome you, or do you get up and come up with a plan to overcome that thing? And so that's how I do therapy. But to your point, my life experience did not count toward my degree, so I had to go get some.
Gotcha.
And so I started working with a Christian nonprofit organization called Counseling Connections for Change in Pearland, Texas. Shout out to Don Lawless, who is the CEO. And I worked there from 2021, summer of 2021, all the way through, I graduated in December of 2022. Took about 2-3 weeks off before my license was granted, and then went immediately back that January and was there from January 2023 until almost a year ago. April 15th of last year was when I started my own practice.
Wow, that's dope.
So I said this before we jumped into this interview, before we went and did the intro. For those who don't know, and probably a lot of you, because listeners and viewers, but we had our first Forte experience, the network party. We had a mastermind right before that in 2022, and Kim was so gracious to be one of our first mastermind ticket holders for our first Forte experience.
She was the first, not one of the first.
She's the first. Okay,
the first.
Stand corrected. Yep. The first. So, Kim, when we were at the end of the Forte Experience Mastermind, we all kind of went around the room and we shared our goals, like for our goals leaving out, because coming into these type of spaces, right, it doesn't benefit you if you don't execute or take heed to what is shared to be able to foster opportunity to scale your business, to start your business. So do you remember your goal? And then are you able to share with our viewers and listeners that space, that room, that information that was shared in that room help you to get to your goal?
Yeah, my goal was to be able to start my own practice, my own individual practice, which I did. So I did meet that goal. I think part of my journey is being an entrepreneurial therapist, which means being able to market myself widespread, not just for the people who are sitting in the chair there in Texas, but being out on social media, creating content, speaking engagements, things of that nature. So I'm currently in the process of working on and building some of that stuff.
I remember one of your goals too, and you accomplished that. You said, because I remember, that you wanted to have a website.
I did.
And go ahead and give our viewers what's your website, because you have a website.
Okay, so my website is CoachKimDavisLMFT.com. But I will warn right now, it's down right now because I am going to do some rebranding. I'm still doing my practice, but I am coming up with a different name for my business. I'm going to create Beauty for Ashes Counseling. And so that's going to be coming out soon.
All right. You said it was called, what is it called again? Beauty for
Ashes. Comes from the book of Isaiah.
I'm sorry, say again.
Yeah. It comes from the book of Isaiah, where where the Lord is saying that he will give you beauty for your ashes. It's talking about the transformational powers of Christ and how he will give you, the people who are mourning and the people who are grieving, beauty and hope and joy, as opposed to, grieving and sorrow and despair. And so that's what I want my practice to be able to do, to be able to give people beauty for their ashes, for their grievances, for their despair, for their hopelessness that they come in the door with. Yeah. I want to be able to transform that into beauty and show them how God uses the things that trouble them to be their greatest testimony.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I met Kim. We both were um, members of transformational coaching program with Darius Daniels. So we
Yeah.
were a part of the coaching cohort, right? So
Yeah.
shout out to all the team, all the coaches, and so we have, man, it was so many people that was a part of this, right? So we in this coaching program, and that's how we met.
Yeah.
That's how we met, and just connected, just immediately, um, and your family, our family, we family.
Yeah.
Queen was able to surprise me when we went to Houston for the football game. She had Kim and her daughters to show up, and so that was a real big surprise for me on my birthday. So that was real dope. Um, but there's something I want to say, Kim, about you that is so amazing. I can't wait till you write this book, by the way, because you got me over here. I'm just like, yo, what? Like, you went through all of that and didn't break? Like, and I just remember our conversations, and I'm like, seemed like every time we were talking, you was at soccer practice or a soccer game, and I'm like, yo, how in the world are you working? You got the 9 to 5, right? And that's one thing that Randall talk about to the Forte is that it's not just about being an entrepreneur where you own your own business that you operate 24/7, but also there's individuals who have a 9 to 5 who are great employees, and then they work
Yeah.
their way into their full-time business or their full-time practice, right? So for you,
Yeah.
it is 9 to 5. Then you are counseling couples and individuals, but you're a full-time mom. You at soccer practice, and I mean, you all over the place, right?
Absolutely.
I'm just like, you're superwoman, because I'm like, how do you do it, right?
Right.
And so, listen, there's so much that you can offer our viewers, as well as those that are in Texas, right? How
Yeah.
can people get in contact with you to have a one-on-one, to know more about your services? Because you're right, you've went through a lot, and you have touched on just a tidbit, and I'm sure there's more that you, for the sake of time, you wasn't able to share. But
Yeah.
what you have communicated to us on this show today is that you have been battle tested, right? And there are
Amen.
people who may be in what you came out of, and they did not have a Kim. I mean, you didn't have a Kim to go to. They do, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have someone to reach out to when you were sexually assaulted, right? When you was raped. You didn't have someone to go to when your dad told you, well, what did you do to put yourself in that position? You didn't have someone to go to when, the marriage wasn't working right, and you got this spouse who's focused on everything else besides, the household, right? Or you didn't have someone to go to when you experienced church hurt. And that's a real thing, right? When you're in church and people are pretty much laughing at you for being a Domino's manager after you graduated from Xavier, right?
Yeah.
Like, man, like who, right? And so there's so many different components, so many different things that you've experienced in your life. And it's like, but they have a Kim Davis they can call. They
Absolutely.
have someone that they can reach out to and say, listen, and not just adults, children, right?
Yes.
Children, because you know what it is to be a teenager that's depressed, right?
Yeah.
Winning externally, but hurting internally, right?
Yeah.
So you know what it is. How can people get a hold of you? Because your services is needed. It is needed, and it's not something that we can ignore. You said something earlier about how the church does not even respect therapy. Why do you need therapy when you got Jesus, right? But the Bible even teaches us, he that has wise counselors are are safe, right? And so, talk to us. How can people get a hold of you? How can they reach out to you for your services? Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead. You got it.
Hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. I am at Kimberly Renee Davis. Renee is spelled Rena. And I'm also on TikTok under Coach Kim Davis LMFT.
You got it. You got it.
Kim, one thing, just like we ended out the mastermind of 2022, we want to end this episode of podcast out with you sharing your 1 to 5 year goals from here on forward.
Okay. 1 to 5 year goals. By year 5, I want to have written that book that Dom keeps hinting at.
By month 5. By month 5. Not year 5. No, you're not going to be like your ex-husband, take 10 years to get associates. Nah. By month 5. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. So let's try that again. Let's try that again, please.
All right. I'm going to say by year 2. We're going to ignore Dom just a little bit because I still do have life going on over here. But by year 2, I want to write that book. I am looking at currently in talks with some ladies. I want to create a workshop or experience for women to come post-divorce, to know that they can become healed and they can be whole and they can have a full and abundant life past divorce. I'm also doing a lot of work with teenage kids. In fact, I have a speaking engagement at my church at the end of the month. I'm going to be talking to them about anxiety and have a Q&A. Me and my sister, Michelle, had a website that was called askthetherapist.com. She has had to forego that to go take care of some other responsibilities. So I will be bringing that back. I will bring back at least monthly sessions in which we will come up with a topic. We will discuss tricks and trades and skills of how to manage those certain issues. And then we'll also leave space for Q&A. So if you have a question, you can come on and you can speak directly to us, or you can email in your questions and anonymously I can answer them. Keep in mind, this does not replace an actual therapist. So if you are having trauma, if you are having issues that are mental health issues, disorders that you think need to be diagnosed and treated, you need to seek out help. And I can help you find resources wherever you're at. If you are in the state of Texas, you can come find me and I'll be happy to help with you. The thing that I want people to know more than anything is that you don't have to live stuck. You have power and you have choices. The Lord has given you authority because the Lord lives in us. So live in all of your power and live your best possible life, because this life is fleeting. So,
Kim, I would like for you to close out with something else. I know we normally end it with the goals, but I was thinking about something. The mass majority of viewers of entertainment didn't believe Megan Thee Stallion. They didn't believe what's the lady name from P. Diddy? Cassie, right? And the list can go on and on and on, right? And listening to you, it was just like, wow. Just think about people who had involvement with celebrities, but then there are those who didn't. It was a family member, right? It was a neighbor. It was a coworker or whatever. And then there are people that say, well, why did they wait so long, right? Why didn't they, contact the police or why would they wait until this person blew up and made all this money to bring the accusation against them, right?
Yeah.
Can you please inform individuals who make those ignorant statements? Can you please speak not just to them, but to the victims, to those who don't feel like anyone will listen to them, right? Don't feel like anyone would, want to hear from them, even if it happened years ago. I just want you to kind of close it on that for us.
Yeah. The thing that I would say is that you are worthy of your voice, that you are worthy of it being honored and your voice being heard, that it doesn't matter when it took place. And what Satan does is Satan is the author of confusion. Okay, so what he'll do is he'll try to say, well, it was your fault or you made a mistake that caused this to happen to you so that your voice is silenced. There is nothing that you could ever do that would allow you to deserve that sort of violation. I don't care what you said, what you did, who you got in the car with, what you wore, anything. You are deserving of love, of honor, of respect, of healing, of wholeness, of the whole thing. And if you have had these experiences, know that there are places where you can get help, know that there are resources available to you. Know that this thing that you experience does not define who you are and does not have to overcome the rest of your life. You can have a future. You are not broken. You are not damaged. You are not tarnished. You are everything that God created you to be. Okay. All you have to do is speak up. And I'm not going to tell you that the journey is going to be easy and that it's going to be painless, but you can live free from the hurt and from the violation that you've experienced. There's help out there for you. You just have to seek it. Be brave enough, courageous enough to move forward and seek it.
Y'all, that's Coach Kimberly Davis. You're tuned into the Forte podcast. We out.